I get the feeling the royal family are kind of hoping that their problem will go away, that if they just keep quiet.
The Epstein investigation. Thank you so much.
We should say that we believe that was a journalist shouting a question, not a member of the public, but clearly keen to see if the royal family have anything to say. The king, though, just continued with his assignment, his meeting that he was at this morning.
So, Prince Andrew just exposed King Charles's ties to a secret Dubai cult. According to him, King Charles would routinely visit Dubai under the radar and get up to all sorts of nasty stuff. We're talking about illegal substances, devious parties on yacht boats, and young girls. He only managed to get away with it so far because everyone was focused on Prince Andrew. However, Prince Andrew just switched the spotlight back on the king, and from what he's saying, Charles was much worse than him.
Let the law investigate the king. I'm afraid his hands are not clean on this.
How damaging do you think this is for the monarchy, and will this force King Charles to abdicate?
My own feeling is that the king's position is untenable. He has quite clearly been complicit in a cover-up.
And no, Andrew's not simply shifting the blame onto Charles so he can get out of his own mess. Remember Andrew Loney? Well, he is a British historian and author who has written many books on the royal family. Think of him as an expert. Well, during a recent interview, he revealed that he actually reached out to the authorities with key evidence he uncovered that could put Prince Andrew in jail for good.
I mean, I've offered material to the National Crime Agency or the police. I have a list of people they could talk to. I have a lot of information that wasn't used in the book for legal reasons, more material I found in the course of research since the book was published. No one, and I've offered it twice now, has come forward, and I've written to them about this and constantly made these offers on air. I ran into one of my UKTI sources the other day in the street by chance, and he was saying that they were getting letters from the civil service reminding them of their obligations of confidentiality.
But guess what? The police don't seem interested in the evidence. In fact, they're actively trying to shut Andrew down from going public with that evidence. And that right there is proof that the authorities are only putting on a show and actually have no interest in bringing justice to Epstein victims.
So it does suggest that while in public the line is, please cooperate with the police, in private it is basically to try and shut this down and get no one to speak.
Everything we're fed publicly from the palace seems incredibly different to the true story behind the scenes, and that's extraordinary that you have offered time and time again your information, which has been proven to be true. It's taken years of you investigating it, and not one approach from anyone investigating Andrew and Sarah still.
And get this, Andrew's not the only one being blocked from presenting evidence. There are others too.
There's some pressure behind the scenes to shut stories down. I was talking to Katie Nichols today on Vanity Fair, and she's not allowed to write a lot of stories. Her colleague Clive Irving on the American side has given up basically trying to cover some of these stories. And I do get the feeling the mainstream press, having been quite robust at one point, have kind of backed off, and there's clearly some pressure being put on them.
Guess who just reappeared in Epstein's photo archive? Prince Andrew. But there's a twist. A photo showing him with Bill Gates at a 2018 event had King Charles cropped out. The House Oversight Committee says that's exactly how it came from Epstein's estate.
The palace actually has a history of burying stories to protect the royal family's image. And it seems like King Charles is pulling the same moves this time.
This, to me, just sets the alarm off of the palace weaponizing their power, exactly like how they did when they buried the Amy Robach story at ABC.
Yes, the Robach story is very interesting. The line is, oh, well, there wasn't enough proof, etc. But they had interviews with all these people, and ABC and Robach are very respectable news journalists. So I find that very difficult to believe.
Still, at first, it didn't make sense to a lot of fans. Why did King Charles need to resort to such measures? What was he trying to hide?
It does seem strange, because there are a lot of names I could give them of people I think would be useful for their investigation, save them a lot of time. They clearly got to follow up on some of my material, but I had to verify it. I've got the evidence there. So it does seem strange.
Well, this is where Prince Andrew comes in. According to him, King Charles doesn't want the world to find out about his involvement with the Dubai cult. Apparently, all those official meetings with the sheikhs of Dubai were only a ruse. Behind the scenes, the king was actually working to strengthen his personal bonds so he could keep partying with them. And if you think Andrew's lying, well, think again. Because according to reports from royal insiders, King Charles reportedly still takes daily calls from Andrew because he doesn't have the freedom to shut the door. And that's raising questions. One fan said, "This isn't brotherly love, it's damage control. Why is the palace more afraid of Andrew going rogue than they are committed to the truth for Epstein's victims? If these daily pleading calls to Charles are about strategy rather than family, what exactly is being managed? If there is nothing to hide, why not encourage him to cooperate fully with the FBI?" To add to the speculation, King Charles even refused to meet Epstein's victims. If he was really serious about making things right, that would be the first thing on his to-do list. But instead, the king refused to sit down with the survivors. It's almost like he's afraid of being exposed. And yes, the king does have something to hide. When UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer was asked about the king's decision, he simply brushed it off, proving how far the king is willing to go to cover up his involvement.
The House Oversight Committee, which is investigating the crimes of Jeffrey Epstein, has called on the king to meet those victims. Do you think there is a moral case for doing so? And if I may, you've obviously outlined today on the cost of living all of what you're doing, which I'm sure listeners will welcome. But just 10% of the public think that the government's doing well. Why do you think that might be?
Well, let me deal with the important point you make at the end there, because one of the things that's really important for me to get across to the public is that their bills are coming down by £100 on average, and they're staying down until the end of June, whatever happens in the conflict.
And that's just the tip of the iceberg. Internet detectives have actually been able to uncover some evidence proving King Charles has skeletons in his closet. Remember how one of Epstein's bank accounts was named Baal after a demonic god? Well, King Charles's official portrait, when mirrored and inverted, appears to reveal Baal at the center. On top of that, one of the leaked Epstein emails revealed that King Charles's aide oversaw royal protection at Epstein's home. And let's also not forget how the king welcomed back Sarah into the royal family the minute he ascended to the throne. For years, Sarah had been shunned from the palace. But after Charles became king, he rolled out the red carpet for her. He invited her to the royal Christmas lunch and the traditional church walk in 2023, making it the first time she had been included since 1992. As for why King Charles made that decision, well, according to one insider, Sarah has always been close to the King Charles and is fond of him, and she has increasingly grown closer to the Queen, Camilla. She's always been loyal to the family and has really not put a foot wrong in recent years. She's never said a critical word and is always extremely loyal to the institution. The insider also said, Fergie is really the glue that holds the Yorks together. She's devoted to her girls and grandchildren and lives with the Duke day to day and has seen him through this difficult period, which has been appreciated by the wider family. But let's not forget that at the end of the day, she's the woman who asked Epstein to marry her. And fans find it hard to believe that King Charles knew nothing about her involvement. So the fact that he invited her over despite knowing everything proves that he's willing to protect those who are part of the same cult as him. At the end of the day, King Charles is complicit, and he's using every trick in the book to make sure no one catches on. However, Prince Andrew is not letting him get away with it. According to sources close to him, Andrew's pissed that Charles had the audacity to strip him of his titles when he's guilty of the same crimes. Surprisingly, fans are convinced that he's telling the truth, especially after Andrew Loney backed up his story. The king is clearly at the very least compromised. I cannot think of any other explanation for the lack of action over the years for all sorts of nefarious activities going back way beyond King Charles, Queen Elizabeth II, Mountbatten, as well as Andrew, Sarah, B, and Huge, and H. Seems like they're all keeping secrets on each other. The only question is, will the authorities investigate Charles? Or is the king going to use his connections to bury the story for good?